Futures literacy is a capability. It's a skill. It's something that people learn how to do, just like you would learn how to cook or learn how to read and write. That skill allows you to understand better how the future influences the world around you, how you source, you invent, you use your imagination to create images of the future, and then how those images of the future influence what you see and what you do. The future has this incredible power to change what we look at. Just think what happens when you fall in love and all of a sudden you start seeing the world completely differently. It's because you have imagined a different future. You've imagined the future with that person. We're continuously imagining the future, and we use our imagination all the time, but we don't think very much about that imagination, where the images come from, and the impact that they have on the world around us. So futures literacy is a capability. That capability can then be deployed, and it can be deployed particularly when you think about something like development, when you think about cities, or when you think about jobs. You tend to think about something you've already seen. You have an image of the future. You have an image of New York. You have an image of Shanghai, of Singapore. You have an idea of Silicon Valley. You have an idea of Brasilia. And those ideas, those images of the future, they're very powerful. They lead you to see certain things and do certain things. When you become futures literate, you can actually see other things. Just think of it this way. If I told you that you could describe the world today, but you could only use the dictionary from 40 years ago, you'd say, well, it'd be a bit difficult to describe the world today, because many of the words that I would use today, social networking, social media, Facebook, those weren't words that existed 40 years ago. When you describe the future, do you think that the dictionary we have today describes the future? No, it doesn't, because there'll be many words that will get invented between now and 20, 30, 40 years from now. So in order to be able to appreciate, to invent, to be able to make sense of and detect things that have no name today, we need to open our minds, but we also need to let go of the past as it gets projected into the future. And this means breaking with a very basic imperative today, which is this idea that we should colonize tomorrow. We should control the future, that we should be the masters of what happens. Instead, we have to take a more humble position, which is more consistent with what we know about the world, which is that certainty leads us to realize that uncertainty is the only certainty. And in that context, we can begin to explore different ways of developing, other ways of thinking about well-being, other ways of imagining how life might be full of meaning. And it's by releasing our imagination that we can create new conditions and express those in the present, instead of trying to wait or extend or impose on the future. Live it now, and live it now in a way that's open and that imagines many different futures, but also imagines futures that are not meant to be goals. They're simply a way to understand and invent new words, new ways of thinking about the present. That's what futures literacy is all about, and it's about a capability-based approach to development. If you were a blacksmith and you made horseshoes and the technologies changed, your sector would disappear. I have a more basic question. For 300 years now, the structure of economic activity has been changing over and over and over again. It continues to change. That's what makes it strong, actually. It's very evolutionary. Things are born and things die. And there's no way to predict today what the skills of the future will be or what the industries of the future will be. We live in a universe that is evolving, that is creative. And we are beings, part of the world that can evolve, that can imagine, that can also be in harmony with the emergence and novelty that's all around us, rather than trying to cover everything with concrete that lasts forever. So I'm not so sure that we need to really think that much. Industry will take care of itself. That's its job. It's like an organism. It tries to stay alive. There's an important distinction between what you see and what you do. If you go into a restaurant and there's only two things on the menu, and one of them you've tasted before, you have a choice. Should I taste something, should I order something that I've already tasted, I know what it's like, or should I order something that I don't know? But there's only two things on the menu. What if there were 10 things on the menu? What if there were 100? When we create the menu of choices around us, the first step is to perceive them, to see what's on the menu, to construct the menu. After that, you can say, oh, today I feel adventurous. Today I want something new. Today I feel like being reassured. I want something from the past. But perception, the menu, is not the same thing as choice. And one of the crucial things about the future is that it is important for both, but they're not the same thing. And that's one of the things about being futures illiterate. Futures illiteracy today, the fact that people don't understand very much about the way they use the future, means that we often confuse perception and choice, what we see and what we do. They're not the same thing. So futures literacy is probably one of the crucial factors for us being able to actually understand that decision-making is something that we deal with in a very kind of mixed and open way, oftentimes emotionally. If you got up on the right side of the bed or the wrong side of the bed, was it a good day or a bad day? You might have a great model for predicting the future, but then be wrong. You might have a bad model and be right, even though it was a bad model. That's predicting and betting. There's the other side of it, which is being surprised, taking a voyage. Process, the voyage, is the product. It's a completely different way of looking at things. What you experience, ephemeral, not permanent, is part of being alive. So there's really a much greater diversity, a much more open way of thinking about human being that is made more accessible through futures literacy. And it helps us understand better perception and choice, and also makes us, I think, realize with greater humility that choice is not about determining the future or always choice about certainty. We can choose to not seek certainty. That's a choice that opens up all sorts of different possibilities.